Good evening, everyone. It's been a little while since we've had a stamp club meeting. For those who were able to join, it is so good to see everybody. For those who were not, it is a tough time of year. We're in the middle of June, a lot going on, a lot of traveling. In fact, we're traveling right now, so I'm in a different location than normal. But I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to look at a really fun design that is made with the Notes and Totes stamp set and also the dies. And it is a really nice little card. I'm going to go through most of how this is done. I want to concentrate on the inside because the inside is a pop-up that allows the tote bag that is kind of the feature of the Notes and Totes dies to pop up in the middle of the card, and you can fit a gift card in here, one that would look the size of a credit card. There are also some other things that you can put in it. But the main focus of what I'm going to do tonight is show you how to make this little piece pop up. And I've done a lot of die cutting and stamping ahead of time to allow me to do this, hopefully, fairly quickly. So we're going to go through and just talk about very, very quickly as I'm putting this together, the materials that I used. I'm going to mimic most of this, although I will say that the design of the bag is going to be done with different designer series paper because I've run out of these pieces and I am not in my craft room to get more, but I think you'll like the paper that I chose. So the card base is just a regular A2. It is cloud cover, which is one of the new in colors. And then on the front, we've got a couple more pieces of paper. The one that is the lighter is actually a basic beige piece. And this measures 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm just going to make that into a little bit of a border around the focal point. And the focal point is a piece of designer series paper. This comes from the beautiful Gallery designer series paper. It's a collection of 6x6 and it is in the new annual catalog. It has some really cool colors. This is cloud cover, and it also is the basic beige, so I thought it would go together nicely. This measures, let's see, 3 3/4 by 4 1/2. So let me give you these measurements one more time, and I will make sure that when the video is posted that the measurements are included as well. So the card base, 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, scored at 4 1/4, regular old A2 card base. This is basic beige, 3 3/4 by 5, and a piece of designer series paper that is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And I'm going to put the front of this together to the point that I can work on the inside of the card. So I do recommend that if you are going to decorate the inside of the card and especially have that pop-up tote, that you decorate the front. And the reason I'm saying that is after you've decorated the inside of your card, if you did that first, you're going to have some bulk and you may not be able to line up the paper the same way that you could if you hadn't put a lot of bulk in the middle. And I'm standing up over the camera trying to get this kind of centered. And I'm going to just let it be good enough. Now, if we look at the example card, the other thing I did is I put in a sentiment and I put that on cloud cover cardstock as well. And I mentioned that I've done quite a bit of stamping in preparation for this because I didn't want you to watch me stamp. I really wanted to make sure we had time to do the tote in the middle. So let's talk about this really quick. This is a piece of cloud cover cardstock, and it measures 5.5 by 1.25. So 5.5, 1.25. And then in the middle of that, I stamped Sending Warm Wishes from the Notes and Totes stamp set. And I used Memento black ink. I wanted the colors to be pretty muted and thought that using the black would really make the color stand out in the background, which is why I chose to do that. And I wanted to then wrap the sentiment around that double framed piece. So in order to do that, remember this measures 3.75 inches wide. So I needed to make sure that I could score the middle of that sentiment piece so that I would have 3.75. So what that means is if you put this piece, the sentiment piece, in a scoring board, you're going to score at 7/8 of an inch, flip it around, score at 7/8 of an inch, and then move the paper a little bit. So if you visualize 7/8 of an inch being here, just move that paper out just a teeny bit and score again at 7/8. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you the ability to have sort of two score lines side by side so that you'll be able to wrap this around. You've got a little bit of thickness with the cardstock and also the designer series paper. And I'm not going to measure anything. I'm just going to figure out that looks pretty okay. And because I've scored it, I know that it's straight. So I am just going to attach that piece by putting on a little bit of glue on both of the ends and get that put together. So I don't really care if it is in the middle vertically. It is going to be just fine. And then I'm going to make sure that I know how my card front is opening, and I'm going to go ahead and put this on the front as well. So I'm just trying to get that front piece done. We will come back and finish off the front, but at least most of the front will be all done. And then we're going to concentrate on the middle and really focus on how to make that little tote bag and make sure that it will pop up when the recipient opens the card. I like basic beige. I think it is so soft, neutral, really pretty, and will go with so many different colors and combinations. And for me, it was a nice change from kind of a basic white. Just turn that over, giving that a little bit of a burnish with my hand. And we've got the beginning of that card front. I will come back later and put the die cuts and the gems, but I've got enough done now that I can start working on the inside. And this is really, like I said, this is really what I wanted to focus on. So here's where we're heading. We're heading to create this tote bag that is going to pop up. And it definitely lies flat. It is a couple layers of cardstock, so it's not going to be super, super flat. That's why I also chose the bulk of the body to be designer series paper to give it a little bit less bulk, but it will fit into an A2 envelope without any problem. All right, so let's get into the dies and what will be needed. And I'm just going to pull over another piece that I have set up that has my dies, or die cuts, I should really say, kind of ready to go. You will notice that I have a different pattern on the pieces that are going to make up the tote bag. So I always like to say this is where we're heading, and then this is, we'll go through and look at how we're going to get there. And when I'm making a project like this, I always take some white cardstock and I do a little mock-up, just so I know that what I'm trying to do is going to work. So for the body of the tote, this is where we're heading. We're going to put two of these pieces together. We're also going to do some modifications to the bottom so that the bag will work in the card. And I'm going to use this prop because it's going to be a little bit easier when I start doing the score lines for you to see the score lines on this white paper versus the designer series paper. And that will make sense in just a minute. To create the bag, you are going to need to die cut two of the bag dies. And this is what the die set looks like. There are a lot of dies. They are so much fun to use. When you get these dies, I will not be held responsible at how much you're going to love them, what you're going to make, and how many ideas are going to pop into your head. Trust me, you will have a lot of fun. So this is the die that you're going to use to cut out two of the bags. And this is what they look like when they're cut. What you want to do is go through and make sure that you burnish the different score lines, and you will see where those score lines are. It is hard to see on the designer series paper on camera, and I purposely have gone through and kind of burnished those score lines. But notice one thing between the two pieces that I've cut here. There's a part that is missing, and it's intentionally missing. We need to take off a part of the die cut. The reason is we don't need the bag to connect in the middle. We are just going to connect the bottom flap to the bottom of the card. So we're going to do a little bit of surgery on this. And what I'm going to do is, after I have burnished all the score lines, so you've got two on each side at the top, you have one on the bottom of the bag, and then right now you do have this little piece. But I am going to literally just cut that off and just take some scissors and just trim that little piece right off. And I will be left with a piece that looks like this. Now, I could obviously decide to turn the designer series paper over and use this pattern, but I'm going to use this one. I think it'll be a little bit easier to see when I start adding some of the decorations. So the first thing we're going to do, and I am going to scoot these pieces out of the way for now, we're going to concentrate on putting the bag together. Again, we're ending, this is our goal. That's where we're heading. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the pieces over, and I'm going to glue them together. And I want you to notice, let me show you this one. See how we have these two pieces? We're going to fold the ends in, and we're going to attach those two small pieces together. So what that looks like when you get them out is that these two are going to be attached like that. They're actually going to be together on the inside of your tote. And all I'm going to do there, be a little bit stingy with the glue. You don't want to get glue where you don't need it, because the bag might not open really well. So you don't even need a lot. I'm really spreading this more than adding, and I'm putting it more on the outside edge. And then I'm just going to hold those together and do a little eyeball and make sure that things are lining up. And I have my first side together. Now we need to get the other side together. And the best way I have found to do that is to fold the side that we just put together. And we're really going to just fold one on top of the other. But we do need to make sure that we're gluing these two pieces. So again, I'm just going to take a little bit of glue. Don't need a lot. Put it right on that edge. And then kind of line these pieces up. Fold it over. And just give it a good burnish. And you can use, different kinds of adhesive. Tape runner, in my opinion, might not be the preferred adhesive. My recommendation would be either Tombow or Tear and Tape. I like the Tombow because it does give you a little grace if you need to move things around. The Tear and Tape, it's not super, super forgiving. All right, so we have those two ends together, and that's where we are at this point. Now, let's look at where we're going, where we are, and what the differences are, because there's a major difference between these two. And if I put them kind of side by side, what you're going to see is that the width of this bottom piece on the one that we have started is much bigger than the width on the bottom piece here. We need to cut so that this flap is only 1/4 of an inch long or wide. That is going to allow us to put the tote at the bottom of the card, and it will open up when we actually open up the card. So here's the way that I've done this, is I'm going to look at the lines on the right side of, no, I'm not, sorry. I'm going to look at them on the left side of my trimmer. My apologies there. And what I want is I'm going to line up right that little corner, because that's right where the flap starts and the other corner. And I'm lining that up on the 1/4 inch. So here's my 1/4 inch line, and I've just got both sides lined up on the 1/4 inch. So if I cut that, those flaps are going to be 1/4 of an inch tall. In other words, when I open this up, each of those little pieces is now 1/4 of an inch wide. And I've cut off probably about another 1/4 of an inch. And you can see that if you open up the bag, and obviously we're looking at it from the bottom, you can line up those 2/4 of an inch pieces side by side. And that's where we're going on the card. And then the bag will actually be open and will stand. All right. Okay. So the bag, for all intent and purpose, is done for the body. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a little bit of the decorating. And I'm going to do the decorating on both sides so that I get to this point. I want my handle on, I want the binding top sides and the pocket on. And then I'm going to put the bag in the card, and then I will finish the other decorations. The reason for that is that it is so much easier to put on some of these pieces when the card is not, or when the bag is not attached to the inside. And you'll see that in just a minute. And I'm going to show you the pieces and put them on. So let's look at what I've cut to make the bag look more like a tote bag, ones that we're used to. And this is where the dies come in super, super handy. And there are a lot of different options. So I'm just getting these out because it'll be easier for me to put them on if I have them somewhat organized. And you're going to notice that I've cut 2 of each. So let's go back and let's look at the dies. All right, let's look at the handle. So the handle that I'm using is this one, and this is the die. You can also use this handle, and this is where it would attach to the vertical part of the tote, and then you'd have a triangle handle. This is where your hand would go up here. I'm going to use this one. And then this die cuts 3 pieces. And when I put that through, I get the bottom of the tote. You'll see that in a minute. And then I get the two side pieces. And I cut these out of Secret C, one of the new in colors as well. So I used that twice. So I got a big piece and then two of the others. And you'll see all of those. Going to use those. And then the pocket. The pocket is this die right here. And I'm going to show you how to shorten from the original size die down to the shorter one. I'm going to use the shorter. And I'm going to put all of these pieces onto the tote. And they will begin to transform how this tote is looking. I'm going to start with the binding, the finish, whatever the proper sewing term is, and I'm embarrassed I don't know what it is, but essentially it's going to give us the bottom and the sides, and then we're going to add the handle and the pocket. So just like that. I do recommend that if you are going to put these pieces on the tote so that they are aligned with the side, you're going to put these on first, and then we're going to put the bottom one on second. The bottom piece goes over some of the piece that is going to be used for the side. And I also recommend that if you have some reversible tweezers, that you use those when you are putting these on. It will make life easier and your hands will not get as sticky. So all I'm going to do for this, I'm going to do one side and then the other. It doesn't take long. I think most of the time that it took me was really to get the dies cut. And that was an assembly line once I got things started. I am going to tack off some of the glue. And I have found if you fold the corners down, so if you fold that outside corner down and you tuck up the bottom piece, you have a much better visual view of where that side piece is going to go. And perfection, don't worry about it. You don't need to be perfect on what you're doing here. And then we're going to add the other piece. I have seen so many examples, I'm sure you have too, on Pinterest and other places out on the internet of some really cool color combinations, designer series paper, folks making totes and using them for very different applications. And there are so many ways to use this. So again, I'm just folding that down and then I'm going back in and trying to get it kind of right on the corner and bottom. And I'll just hold it for a second, and it's already starting to look a little bit more like a tote bag. All right, this piece is going to go on the bottom. What the die does not do is the die does not give you a little score for the corner. So what I did is I put it back into my scoring board, and right at the point where that little sort of indentation is, I put a score. I just put it in my scoring board and I scored that. The reason I did that is I find that it is much easier with the score to wrap that around the bottom. Make sure you do a fairly good job getting some adhesive on these little flaps, because as they turn the corner, they're going to need to get reinforced a little bit. And I am going to dab off those ends just a smidge, but I did want to get some good adhesive, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that on the bottom. I'm trying to line up the score line with the edge of the side. The edge of the side. That could be a good book. The edge of the side. And just holding, especially those corners, just for a second to let it do its magic. There are also some really, really cute ideas that are out on the internet to make bags and not chop off the bottom like we did, but to leave the bag in its full size and then to fill it with candies or tea bags or whatever you want. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the handle. And to do that, I'm going to grab my little reversible tweezers and put a little bit of glue, just a dab on the handle. And then I am going to press that down and sort of kind of try to get it in the middle-ish. And this is personal preference. If you want the handle to be a little bit higher or lower on your bag, it is all up to you. And I'll show you how I did this pocket when we get to the other one. I just want to get this. Actually, no, let me show it to you now. So when you first die cut the pocket, you end up with a piece that is this large. And if I hold it correctly, you can see that there's some die sort of embossing that creates the illusion of a flap. If you grab your scissors and you cut right underneath, so to the right of where those embossed dots or kind of dashes are, it's almost like you're going to cut this in two pieces. And what's really nice is that you can then glue that piece on top. And frankly, it looks a little bit more like a pocket because it's two-dimensional. Put your glue on this piece. I almost put it on the wrong one. Put your glue on the bottom piece. But it looks more like a pocket, I think, when it is smaller because you do have the two pieces. And it looks like it's actually giving it an illusion of being able to be open. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one on as well. The other thing that you will find if you get this die set is that there are so many very unique and fun dies for all sorts of accessories. You have a bag scarf. I'm just looking top and right and bottom to try to get that about the same width from each of the right and left sides and also from the bottom. And you can see that that side now really does look like a tote bag. I just think this is stinking cute. So I'm gonna, as quickly as I can, put the other side together. I thought about putting one side together and then I thought, before getting on tonight, then I thought no, because we did chop off a little bit of the bottom of the bag and I didn't want to mess anything up by putting that through the paper trimmer. So I will just do this one kind of quickly. But you also have some really cool things like a pair of sunglasses, a water bottle, some tanning lotion, let's see, a starfish, a shell. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And also you can make a fence. I'll show you another card, but you can make a kind of like a beach fence, which is really cool with some of the dies that come with the collection. So there are so many options. And then the stamp set is primarily sentiments that work really well. It's really the dies that, in my opinion, make this collection. They're just so much fun. And see how this is already starting to pop up? I'm not going to worry about it now. I'll show you in a little bit how you can fix that. And it can even be fixed after you have it attached to the inside of the card. But that's what I found, and that's why I was really trying to reinforce that little side here from popping up. All right, moving as quickly as I can here. And if you're like me, I bet you have a couple of totes in your real life. I love them. I think it would be really, really cool for a birthday or a special occasion for some specific person to personalize. You know how a lot of people have their initials or their names on the tote bags? I think that would be really cool to do with this set. And Stampin' Up! Years ago had a fun stamp set that had scripted letters that would be absolutely perfect for monograms. I just think it would be stinking cute. All right, and you can tell I'm really trying to press those sides in so they will not pop out. And if they do, I'll show you how to fix it. So here's what I
Hey,
like.
Lori.
Yeah,
Sorry, I just have a quick question.
yeah.
I've seen online where people had sun hats and flip-flops and all kinds of things they've added on. Do you know what kind of stamp set that was by chance that they had? Or is it just
There
maybe not a
is
stepping
one,
up
and
one?
yeah, off the top of my head, and I'm embarrassed that I can't tell you the name, but I will find out.
Oh,
But
oh
I
no,
do
it's
know what
okay.
you're talking about.
Yeah, because there's so many with like cute little sun hats and flip-flops.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
go really, really well. But
Mm-hmm.
I will find out and I will add that as a note. Thank you for asking.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. So when I get to adding the handle on the second side, I like to mirror where the handle is on the first side, just because I think it looks a little more finished. And the way I'm going to do that is got the reversible tweezers that are holding my little piece, put glue just on the back of the part that will be attached to the bag, and I'm going to visually try, and again, perfection is not required, to get that so that it looks like it's in the same place. And then I'll add in the pocket. And the other pocket that you have, you know, the larger one, you can definitely put on here. You might want to use the other handle because you can bring the other handle up a little bit closer to the top of the bag. So this trick of shortening the height of the pocket is a really cool way to allow you to use the combination of this handle and then a shorter pocket. So now we have our decorated bag. We don't have all the bells and whistles that we will put on, like the scarf and the sunglasses. We'll do that in just a minute. So the next part is really the most important when you think about how do you attach this inside the card so that when you open the card, it will open up. And what we're going for is that on one side of the card, so if you think about this card that we've put together, this is the one that we did at the beginning. I'm just gonna turn this over so I don't get any glue on anything. We want to attach the 1/4 inch, the designer series paper piece, to the top side of the card. And then the other side, we want to attach to the bottom side. So I'm just going to open up the card and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on one of the sides. And really, it doesn't matter if you do the top side first or the bottom side. And you also don't need to, in my opinion, get completely, crazy about getting this absolutely in the middle. Not the point. Because the person who opens this is just going to have their mouths dropping open, thinking, oh my word, how in the world did that work? So what you want to do is get close to that score line, but you don't want to go over the score line. So it's kind of like you're butting up against the score line. That will still allow you to be able to close the card. And you can do this one of two ways. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to hold it down. I am going to put some glue, a little bit, again, just let's do a little bit. And I'm not squeezing now. I'm really kind of spreading that glue out, not doing a lot. I'm going to hold with my right hand. I'm right-handed. I'm going to check, making sure that I can still open things up even as that card comes over. So you don't want to really mush it into the middle. And then I'm going to close the card and I'm going to burnish. And if you have a bone folder or anything like that, you may want to, and don't press super hard because you might put a crease in your paper that you're really not going to be super happy with, but give it a nice little burnish. And then you can also use your finger and give it a little bit of a burnish. All right. And you could definitely do this with tear and tape. Make sure that the tear and tape, which is usually 1/4 of an inch, isn't too wide. And if it is, you can trim it a little bit and put tear and tape on that edge. And then I'm going to kind of test this. I'm going to turn it all the way over. And I'm just going to try to move it. I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm just trying to move that. That's going nowhere. So now I'm going to do the other side. And it's exactly the same thing. So I'm putting some glue on here. Again, not an awful lot. I'm not pushing anything right now. I am just spreading this out. And I think I need a tad more there. All right. And you know where we're going. We're just going to take the other side, push that down. And in this case, since the back of the card doesn't have any layers, it's a little bit easier to get at that center and give it a little burnish. And I'm just going to burnish it. Depending upon what kind of glue you're using, it could take a minute or so to get it nice and set. And it should be dry. All right, so I'm going to turn this over. And then when I open the card, I have a little tote bag that opens up. And the reason that that 1/4 inch was so important on the bottom is if, think about it. If we had left that additional 1/4 inch at the bottom, two things would happen. One is that the bag would be stretched out a lot. And the other is that some of those, that the bottom would overlap and it just would not work. So that's why we cut it down to 1/4 of an inch. But isn't that the coolest thing? You open it up and you've got this super cute tote bag that is definitely big enough for a credit card sized gift card, or you could tuck a rolled up paper bill, some money, whatever it is. So I'm going to very quickly do a little bit of decoration, and I'm going to do this one differently than I did the other, just a little differently. So let me show you the other one that was the example. I am going to put a sentiment on the inside, and then I'll have plenty of room to write my message. So this piece is the same size as the piece on the front. This is basic beige, and it is 3 3/4 by 5. And I also used one of the stamps from the stamp set. Just relax and enjoy. And you can see a lot of sentiments in here, and also a lot of nice little designs for using on the water bottle or the suntan lotion and some other things. And you can mix and match and use those in different ways. So I just stamped relax and enjoy. And again, I did that with Memento black ink. And because the size works for this piece, I can go ahead and I can add that. And I'm going to get it kind of close to the tote just because that's the size that I purposely cut. And I'm just going to go ahead and attach this down. And then I'm going to do two very, very quick decorations on the bag and quickly finish up the front with the big piece, creating the bag that pops up. We have definitely done that. So I'm trying to not include the bag in my vision when I am attempting to center this. And I purposely did not put this piece in before I put the bag in because there's a chance that I would have put this piece in a little too close to the score line. And I wanted to make sure the bag had plenty of room. And optically, no one is going to really look and see if that's in the middle. So notice one thing on the example that I did, the additional decoration is on the side that would be seen when you're opening the card. I'm going to do this one so that the decorations will be on the side toward the sentiment. Just, just because, just a little different. And I'm going to only add two things. One is a scarf for the bag, and this is another one of the dies. I cut this out of a piece of the beautiful gallery designer series paper, and I'm using this die. And just to give it a little bit of a visual kind of flow, I'm going to use my bone folder and have it kind of going in a couple of different directions. That may or may not stick when this card is opened and closed multiple times. And I'm going to make sure that I put it kind of right there. So tips on this, when you're adding pieces to these totes, put the glue on the tote. Because if you get glue outside the area on the tote, you might glue the tote together. And then it is not going to open up. So I put my glue on the tote and I'm just going to put that little scarf kind of down there. I like it because it also adds some more color. So it will have a little bit more interest when the person opens it. And then the last thing that I'm going to do for decorations, and this is another one of the dies, is put a little pair of sunglasses. This die here is one die. It cuts out the outside, the inside, and you also get two hearts that are cut out when you cut out the actual frames in the front. I strongly recommend that you use reversible tweezers on this, because otherwise you're going to swear a little bit. You're going to get ink on yourself, or glue on yourself, and it's just going to be a lot easier. And you don't need a lot. So I'm just putting dots pretty much. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some of that glue because I don't want a lot. And then I'm going to put this together. And I'm looking at it rather than having it under the camera, just so I can make sure I got it in the right place. And I think they're so stinking cute. And you can, make them look really fun with metallic lenses and any kind of frame that you want. You could cut them with designer series paper, the frames. I think that would be super fun. I'm looking at it from the back too. I'm just trying to get it a little more straight. And then I'm going to attach these glasses as if they are hanging from the top of the bag. And I want to make sure that the color is shown, the offset. These were cut out of Pretty Peacock and black cardstock. And I just thought that the colors in the scarf that are on the bag, we needed to pull those out. We're just putting a little bit of glue on that one lens. And then I'm going to attach that So I can still see the handle and part of the pocket, and it looks like those glasses are hanging off the side. All right, so the last thing to do for the inside, at least the way that I put the gift bag together for the ones that I'm going to use. I told you we are not at home right now. I went into our pantry up here and I found some cocktail napkins that have some really fun colors that I thought would work really, really well, especially with the pretty peacock and some of the other colors. And I cut the cocktail napkins into quarters. And then upon further investigation, this is where necessity is the mother of invention. I split this little dude in half. It's a great hack if you don't have tissue paper. And I sort of folded them into little triangle-ish pieces and then put them into the bag. So I just tuck them in and I'll show you what it looks like in a sec. And I'm just trying to get a little bit of color in there. So put some color in the front and in the back. And it looks a little bit more like a gift bag. So that's how that was created. And then you can pop in a credit card like gift card or whatever it is that you're going to do. And you can see that even when I close this now, it all closes up. The last things that I did on the front of the card, I added a little bit more interest. I am going to flip this over again just so I don't get glue on the final cards. And I used a couple more of the dies. One is the starfish and the other is the shell. And I had some scraps of Thoughtful Journey designer series paper. And this is the piece that I used. And I just took you can see, I cut out some of the starfish at the top and also some of the shells. And I just tried to capture a little bit of color. It's kind of a cheat, but in my opinion, one that works. I mean, when you go to the beach, we all know that when you find shells, they have variegated color. And this is just really pretty with a designer series paper. So I'm just gonna plunk those on again, and I'll mimic this design on the right. I wanted the front to be simple. It didn't need, in my opinion, to go overboard because the real impact is on the inside. So just added that little shell. And this shell's kind of cool. It's actually multiple levels. It swirls and it opens. And I think it would be fun to maybe even put a little bit of a dimensional underneath and see if you could get that shell to look a little bit three-dimensional when you put it on. And again, I really am mimicking what I did on the card on the right. The starfish are also very fun, and I think cutting them out of designer series paper adds a little bit of interest and gives them a little bit more realistic sort of feel because they're not just completely one color and they look a little bit more sandy, if you want to say that. They do have some holes that are die cut into them, and sometimes the glue can come up through. So my advice is to not put a lot of glue and be a little patient like I am here and just allow that glue to dry. And then the last thing I did was added a few of the Druzy adhesive backed embellishments. I wanted a little bling on the front, and I thought these would really work. I used a couple of the bold ones, and I put two on I usually would put 3, but since we've got 3 of the die cuts on the front, I decided overall I wanted to keep it at a odd number of things that would attract your eye on the front of the card. So there we have it. The one on the left is the one that we've been doing. The one on the right is the example, and they are definitely a little bit different, but they both have the effect that when you open them up, you have a pop-up tote bag as the inside. And I just think these are absolutely adorable. Think about wedding showers or baby showers or birthdays, anniversaries. Get well. You could put a little gift card for someplace, for tea or coffee, Starbucks or whatever it might be. Just a lot of different ways to use these. And they really are simple to make. After you've made one, you will not have any questions. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I would love to see what you make because I know that you're going to have a lot of ideas of what you can use these little pop-up gift card bags for. And until next time, happy stamping.